In this video, I want to have a look at the difference between a census and a sample. So there's two main ways to collect data, and they are a census and a sample. You would have probably heard the word census before when we're talking about the Australian census that happens every couple of years. So what a census is when we want to collect data about every single thing in a population. So we want to collect information that we want it to be exact and about the whole population. So for example, the Australian census, they're collecting data about every single person in Australia. For a sample instead, a sample is only part of a population. So we don't get data about every single member of that population. So there's different advantages and disadvantages for census and sample. A census will always give us exact and accurate information because we've looked at data from the whole population. A sample data won't be as accurate. It might not be representative of the whole population, so it's not going to be as accurate. The advantage of it though is that it is going to be a lot faster and easier and cheaper to perform a sample than it is a census. So when we are trying to decide whether we want to do a census or a sample, there's lots of different things that we need to have a think about. So we need to think about how exact or accurate we need our data to be. So we need to think about what we're going to use the data for. We need to consider how much time we have, how much money we have to spend, and how many people we have in order to put resources towards collecting this data. So if we have a look at a couple of examples and to decide whether we would use a census or a sample. So our first one is if we're trying to find out the most popular ice cream flavour. So we're trying to collect data. Now if we think about these questions, what's the data going to be used for? Chances are it's going to be used when we're looking at sales. So thinking about how much ice cream in particular flavours we need to make or buy so that we can sell them. How accurate does the data need to be? It probably doesn't need to be 100% accurate. If we get it a little bit off, that's okay. We just need a general idea. How much time and how much money? You probably don't want to invest too much into it if it doesn't need to be hugely accurate. So for collecting data about the ice cream flavour, I would say a sample. Right, the battery life of a new product. So say we've got a new phone or a new appliance and we're trying to find out how long the battery is going to last. It's not really very practical to think about testing the battery life of every single battery that's made. So for this one, I'm going to say a sample. Now all the batteries are also made in the same way on the same machines. So if you test some of them, chances are that the rest are going to be fairly similar. The last example we have is the number of people living in aged care in Wollongong. For this one, what's the data going to be used for? It's going to be used for things like medical resources and housing, nurses, all those sorts of things. How accurate does that need to be? For that one, I'd say it needs to be fairly accurate. You can't just get a sample and assume that it's going to be the same for the whole suburb or for those areas or the same age brackets. I'm going to say a census for this one. Again, it would depend what the data is being used for. So we haven't been told. So you could possibly argue for a sample depending on why we're collecting the data. But because it's a fairly important resource that we're looking at building infrastructure and getting medical resources and training people to work in that area, it is important. So I'm going to say a census. So that's having a look at the difference between a census and a sample.